Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Cavan-Smith. Tonight, Africans are amongst the thousands evacuated from the Ukrainian city of Sumy. Hundreds of students from the continent had been stuck in the city since Russian forces invaded. Also, as the world celebrates International Women's Day, we hear from some of the Kenyan women living in informal settlements about their struggles with poverty and disproportionate childcare duties and lower incomes. And we head into the deep blue with South Africa's first black freediving instructor. Zandi Ndhlovu set up an organisation to teach young people who might traditionally be afraid of the sea to swim and dive deep. But first, Africans were amongst the hundreds of foreign nationals evacuated from the besieged Ukrainian city of Sumy on Tuesday. It's been nearly 2 weeks since Russian forces first invaded, and hundreds of mostly Nigerian students spent days trapped in Sumy as it was shelled. Laurent Berstecker tells us more.
Trapped in the Ukrainian city of Sumy since the start of the war, hundreds of foreign students, including many Africans, finally had an opportunity to flee. The first buses began carrying civilians out of the city after Ukrainian and Russian authorities agreed to a ceasefire Tuesday morning.
A humanitarian corridor for the city of Sumy should start operating today. This was officially approved by the Russian Ministry of Defense.
By Tuesday evening, some 5,000 civilians had been evacuated to the city of Poltava, away from the front lines. These included 1,700 foreign students, many hailing from African countries. Tanzanian authorities also negotiated safe passage for their students and citizens using a separate corridor towards the Russian city of Suja. From there, a first batch of 11 Tanzanian students were taken to their embassy in Moscow on Tuesday.
It would not have been safe for them to cross without protection. Now Ukraine and Russia have assured us they will transport them to the border from inside Ukraine, and that Russia will bring them to Moscow.
Sitting just 50 kilometers from the Russian border, Sumy was among the first cities to be attacked when the war broke out. Taken by surprise, hundreds of students, including Nigerians, Rwandans, Ghanaians, and Tanzanians, were unable to flee.
Well, thousands of Sudanese protesters demonstrated again on Tuesday to denounce the military's takeover last October and call for justice for the dozens of demonstrators killed over the last 4 months. Security forces clashed with crowds as they headed towards the presidential palace in Khartoum. A top opposition politician was also arrested elsewhere in the city on Tuesday. Babika Faisal is on a task force that's working on tracking property seized under the regime of ousted former leader Omar al-Bashir. And the son of Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni is retiring from the army. 47-year-old General Muhoozi Kainerugaba hasn't said why he's leaving, but has repeatedly denied claims that he's manoeuvring to take over from his father with a presidential bid in 2026. Now, last month, prominent author and government critic Kakwenza Rukura-Bashaija fled to Germany after accusing Muhoozi of having personally overseen his torture after he was arrested for tweeting that Museveni's only son is an obese curmudgeon and a baby despot. Well, March 8th marks International Women's Day. It's a chance for communities, countries and organisations around the world to focus on the ongoing struggle for women's contributions to be put on an equal footing to men's. Part of that means including more women in the process of finding solutions to the problems faced by their societies. In Niger, the National Network of Women for Peace holds workshops in villages looking at what women can do in the fight against jihadism. Harold Girard sent us this report from Liboré.
Does the soldier who is patrolling and in charge of our security know that there's a terrorist in the village? Will the terrorist let us spot him? No, of course not. This is not a country against another. This war is based on trickery.
Fatoumata Issaka is one of the founding members of the National Network of Women for Peace. The organization works in dozens of villages in the region of Tillabéri. Their goal is to make women part of the process of bringing security to Niger by integrating them in the fight against jihadism and crime.
We, as the women who stay home, we are the ones who see who comes in and out of the village. If there's an empty house next to yours and somebody is settling there for 2 days, even though you don't know them and you don't know what they have in mind, you need to tell your village chief that there is a stranger.
This kind of behavior has yet to become the norm in the villages. Fatoumata Isaka believes that involving women could make a big difference to Niger's anti-terror strategy.
There's no development without security, and that's the way we work, to empower young people and women who are both the victims and can be actors at the same time.
Women say they would like more of these meetings, but the lack of resources is a major hurdle. UN Women is supporting the work of 20 organizations across the country, but their good results remain fairly unknown.
There are lots of interesting projects, but we don't talk enough about the positive change they could bring. So to help them, it's about sharing their results and putting them in a position to reach partners.
In Niger, violence against women is more prevalent in areas where armed groups operate. In areas like these, it's often impossible to keep track of gendered incidents and abuses like forced marriages, genital mutilation, or rape as a weapon of war.
Now, women face higher rates of poverty than men. In Kibera, Africa's largest slum, there are 116 women to every 100 men. The disparity is in part affected by the greater burden of childcare carried by women. Our team sent us this report from Kenya.
Hello.
Helen makes calls every morning looking for a job. She's a single mother who lives with 2 of her children.
They gave me even 150 or 200, but you do big job, but small money.
With less than €2 a day, it's impossible to get out of poverty. It's barely enough to pay her rent.
This house is 2,000. I cannot afford to go in the hospital and pay this rent and school fee and whatever. That's why I lose my hope.
Nairobi hosts 60% of the country's informal settlements, including Kibera, where for every 100 men, there are 116 women. This community organization blames the imbalance on a patriarchal culture.
In this society, we give birth when we are young. So you are a kid and you have a kid, like from 15 years, people are giving birth. You see, but the man has that privilege. They will go and look for a job and find. A man who is 15 years is capable of completing their school, even if they are fathers, but a woman will stay at home. So we have so many challenges that brings the woman back.
Kenya's 2010 constitution emphasizes gender equality, but today, women still face greater disadvantages. Jana Oko is running for a seat in Nairobi's county assembly. She says the country needs more women in power.
We have a lot of resources. If you go to our women rep or even the MP, they have a Uwezo fund, they have the women fund. But does this fund really go to the woman at the ground? Somebody must stand in and ensure that what belongs to the local woman comes to the local woman.
The 2021 World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report shows that if things continue as they are, it may take Kenya roughly 138 years to achieve gender parity.
Well, for Zandi Ndhlovu, plunging to new depths is a good thing. She's South Africa's first black freediving instructor. Now, with many South Africans unable to swim, she set up an organisation that helps underprivileged young people get their feet wet. Take a look.
They call her the Black Mermaid. With one breath, Zandi Ndhlovu can dive down to 34 meters deep into the ocean for 4 minutes long.
In the beginning, I was afraid. I didn't grow up around the sea, and for me it was new. I just remember when I got to 23 meters and I could not go deeper. Not because I didn't have the breath hold for it, but because I was afraid of all the stories that we'd grown up with.
She has since become the first black person in South Africa to qualify as a freediving instructor, a job she didn't know existed 20 years ago.
These oceans haven't always been open to everybody. We have a hard history as a country. And so I think waters are new to black and brown communities in a way where it's a free space for us to explore, but we need to learn.
She lives in Cape Town now, but Zandile grew up in Soweto, far from the coast. As a child, she only visited the ocean once.
So what is crazy is here we are on the surface, and never ever did we know that there was life that lived under there. And that's why everyone always says to me to this day, why do you do white people things?
In apartheid South Africa, beaches like these were restricted to white people only. Zandile works actively to open the ocean up to all communities.
Have you swum in the sea before? No. See, this is my mermaid.
Through the Black Mermaid Foundation, she shows underprivileged children how to explore the ocean so they'll grow up unafraid and become custodians.
I believe that diverse representation in the ocean space is the most important thing. If we want to save these oceans, we need all hands on deck. So you just need to be careful. What is this? Then we can put it back nicely. There we go, beautifully.
Oh, that's so lovely. That is, though, all we have time for on Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again if you can. Take care.